Hello, my name's Nick, and this is the introduction to my build for the Great Guitar Build-Off 2021. I've been building guitars for a few years now, and you can see a few examples hanging on the wall behind me. In this year's build-off, I wanted to do something that was a little bit different, and there are a few things that inspired me. The first one goes back a few years, and I went to see Fleetwood Mac in concert. And whilst I've never been a massive fan of Fleetwood Mac, I was really taken by the guitar playing of Lindsey Buckingham. And his guitar was really interesting. I hadn't seen it before, and later found out that it's a guitar made by Rick Turner. So what I thought I would do in this build-off was to have a go at making a guitar along the same lines as that one. So the guitar is quite an interesting one because it has a radius on both the front and the back. In order to make it, it has to be done in two halves that are later pieced together. So what I'm going to show you in these videos is the process of reverse engineering how to make this guitar, how to build it in two halves, and how to make the various jigs that have been necessary to do this. Because I wasn't sure whether it was going to be possible to do this easily, I started making a guitar based on scraps of wood that I had from making my workbench. There are actually going to be two guitars coming out of this. The first one is a bit of a test, and then the second one is a more traditional one, using a combination of maple and mahogany. I hope you find this build interesting, and I'm going to move from the warmth of my dining room, where you can see me now, to my cold, dusty garage. So I'm planning to build the guitar in two halves. The bottom half is going to be made out of this piece of mahogany. It's about 44 millimeters thick.
45 yards. 40 yards, 45 yards. 45 yards.
And to start out with, I will take a template and cut out some of the interior of the guitar, so it's built on the inside out. So we will take some material out to relieve weight, and we will route out channels inside for the wiring, and also route out areas for the electronics, a battery if necessary, and something interesting for the pickup holder. And then I'm planning to use, on the top, a thinner piece of flamed maple. This is quite a nice piece of book-matched flame maple. I've got to join it yet, so the first thing that I'll do is join this to try to produce a nice seamless joint down the centre. Once that's done, we can flip it over. And we will route out the inside as well. So there'll be some weight relief and also places for the electronics to go. The top will then be radiused, and it's a 600 millimeter or 24-inch radius. So thin at the edges, thick in the center. So that will then be done, leaving the inside of the guitar flat. And then the bottom of the mahogany will also be radiused along here, leaving the top of this one flat. And because these two are going to be indexed so that they sit exactly in the right place, the routes inside should match up, and we'll simply be able to glue everything together and then cut out the shape, and the shape will be something more like that. I put together a three-dimensional CAD drawing illustrating the different components. So here we've got the mahogany back, the maple cap, and the neck all separately. And you can see also there's going to be a bridge and a tailpiece. So each part has to be made separately, and then the whole thing is assembled, and it should look something like this. The problem with this design though is that the guitar should be made out of two pieces of mahogany of the same thickness, but in this case I'm going to use a much thinner piece of maple on top. So I wanted to do this CAD program to find out whether or not I could make the radius on the top piece of maple without making the maple too thin at the edges. So the first step in the process is to join together these two book-matched halves of this top billet. I have a lot of wood lying around left over from when I made this workbench. It's about 10 centimeters by 4.5 centimeters. And I had in mind trying to build a guitar which is a bit different. So started out with this. and then cut it down to size using my bandsaw. And then I'm now in the process of making sure that all of the edges are nice and square so that I can join them together. And actually, if you choose some nice parts of this timber, then it doesn't look too bad. But even so, what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to find a way of covering up the wood. But I'll decide on that later, depending on how nice it looks without some other covering. it has a 600mm radius on both sides, front and back. So the easiest way to make the guitar is to build it in two halves and join them together. So I have got two blanks with the shape drawn on roughly, with various indexing pins and indexing holes. And I've already routed on the inside areas for reducing weight and to allow the cabling to go through. So I've done this on both sides. These sides can index together. And then the plan is to put them inside this jig, like this. I'll have to do them one at a time. And then I'm going to see whether I can do the radius with this huge thing. So my router is going to fit on the top here, and I've made a radius in this large block. And the basic idea, I can't quite show you properly here because the wood is too tall as it is, but the basic idea is that as I route, I can move this curved sled either side and hopefully start to get rid of or create the correct radius in the top and the back of the guitar. So I've just got to make this a little bit more safe so it doesn't fall down, and then we'll have a go and see if it works. So now we've radiused the top. It's a bit rough, but it's the right shape. And what I think will be useful is by leaving these corners here, I can flip the whole thing over. I can have a nice steady base to support it whilst I do the other side.